Charlotte and I did a little bit of collaboration by email to decide who was going to go first, and Charlotte said, well, I guess Charlotte, am going to be doing the intellectual...
Theology.
Yes, and I guess you're going to be doing the more... It wasn't exactly touchy-feely, but that... Yeah. but yeah, anyway. So, here I am. I'm going to try to do this as a reflection, focused in 3 movements or 3 parts, on silence, breath, and embodiment. And maybe at this time of year, incarnation would be a good word. It's strange to me that many of the quotations that I've got in my journals that I've chosen to record actually relate to music and to silence. One that I didn't record because I read it so long ago is in one of Madeleine L'Engle's books. She said, or maybe she even quoted somebody else, that the greatest moment in music is the silence between the Sepultus est and the Resurrexit, between he was buried and rose again, in the credo of Bach's B minor Mass. And I stopped. I mean, silence is the greatest moment in music. And I guess over the years that's come to take more shape and form within me. Another quotation that I wrote actually comes from a novel by Kate Moss, Sepulchre, and she writes, music is an art form that involves organized sound and silence. Isn't that beautiful? There is no pattern the human mind can devise that does not already exist within the bounds of nature. Everything we do, see, write, notate, all are an echo of the deep seams of the universe. How about this? Music is the invisible world made visible through sound. Music is the invisible world made visible through sound. So silence and music. And what is silence? Silence is, for me, is the absence of human created noise. And even in the absence of human-created noise, there is sound. There's an acoustic ecologist, you may have heard of him, Gordon Hempton, who studies and advocates for silence. His book is 1 Square Inch of Silence. And he says silence is not the absence of something, but it's the presence of everything. It holds holds the deep seams of the universe. One of the books that I read this summer that has left a profound impression on me, and I was lucky enough when I was travelling, taking the book out of the library, to accidentally leave my water bottle open, and it spilled all over the book. And it was ruined so much that I bought it from the library, so I now own the book. It's a book called Nocturne by Helen Humphreys. You may have read some of her novels. And it's her memoir of her brother Martin, who was a concert pianist, who died 4 or 5 years ago of pancreatic cancer. And it's her recollections of their conversations all through life around art forms, music and literature, around his dying, and about her experience since his dying. But one of the things she says is, the space that I write these words down in is the space after the music has left. It's that silence in the concert hall after the last note of the piano has been struck and held, and the whispers of that note hush down to nothing, to the emotions left by the music, by the memory of sound. So this is where I should stop speaking, silence. But it's, for me, that says both. For me, it's the moment after when the conductor holds the baton high to hold the note. so that people don't burst into noise, so that we allow the music to take its place in us in some part of our being. And within a song, because that's really the only music that I'm particularly expert in, well, not even expert in, but silence is the space between the notes. It's what gives shape to what we're singing, the rhythm and the tempo and the meter. And it's the space that allows us to draw breath. And that's where I want to go next. That leads me nicely into the next movement of this piece, into breath. So breath, spiritus, pneuma, ruach, prana, Atman. In many faith traditions, breath is an essential part of our faith expression. When I was spiritual care director at Dear Lodge Centre, one of my responsibilities was the respiratory care unit, where we provided palliative care for those living with chronic lung disease. And towards the end of my time there, our team was invited to contribute a chapter to a medical textbook on palliative care, would you believe, for those living with chronic lung disease. And I was asked to contribute the section on spirituality, on spiritual care. And I knew that our patients struggled with and for every breath, and that breathing caused incredible anxiety. Being asked to focus on breath was the last thing they needed to be asked to do. So offering spiritual care under those circumstances was a challenge. But in writing that particular section, I came to think of how many words use that root of spirit that are part of our common language. Think about inspire, aspire, expire. I mean, they were afraid of expiring. Yes. Respiratory and conspire. And one of my goals is to redeem the word conspiracy, because we're so focused on conspiracy theory and a very negative aspect to that. But I have come to think of singing, of choral singing, as a conspiracy, because we draw breath together, and then we release that breath together, and as we give voice, we make a sound, we vibrate, and that vibration joins with the music of the universe. And I think it's a wonderful expression of coming together in community, in a conspiracy. So that's my redemption of conspiracy. So when and how does music, singing, become an expression of my spirit, of what moves me, of what moves my being? And when am I just singing a series of words or sounds that just sort of come out of my mouth? And that leads me into embodiment, into incarnation. The first time I sang Carolyn McDade's song Morning, I think about 12 years ago now, I sang the words, "We are the land we sing, we are the prayer we bring." And those words just sort of sank into a different place within myself. I experienced an inner shift, a sense of homecoming, a feeling that this expresses with all of my being what I know to be true for myself. And words I've sung more recently, words of a good friend, Sherry Westmoreland, who's a photographer and writer, and words that Carolyn put to music in Widening Embrace. We sing ourselves into a new humanity, every breath in our body interwoven with our place. Again, that community, that interconnection, not just with the people we're singing with, but with all that makes us who we are, and with the interconnection with all that is. And I think in singing from the heart, we become the embodiment. We become the incarnation of that I think the yearning of our spirit that if we spend time, we know is true for all of us, the longing and the yearning to be one, and that can't be separated from the longing of all creation, of all nature. I'm sure we're going to be singing, Laurie, if it's not on your list, you can put it on. We'll be singing Joy to the World. And what do we sing? And heaven and nature sing. We sing while fields and floods, rocks, hills and plains repeat the sounding joy. And all creation groans. And Jesus said that if these people are silent, the very stones will cry out. So we're joining our voice with the all that is. So, and if I'm singing words that touch my heart in a community of people whose hearts are also moved, then my own sense is the sound not only moves within my body, but within the gathered community and beyond. Those sound waves reverberate, hopefully harmoniously, and can continue to reverberate through nature. I put a little piece in here, and I think probably it's important to say it, that that power of singing can be abused, and I think we know that. Think about Hitler Youth singing Deutschland über alles, where they were moved, but moved perhaps not in a way that was wholesome. And anyone from England, Phil, remembered watching on BBC television, watching the last night of the proms, and joining our voices and singing Land of Hope and Glory and Rule Britannia and Jerusalem. But again, that power of joining voices together hopefully in a constructive way. This is where I join with you, Charlotte, because we're going to be singing Christmas carols in a few minutes. And we know that we are hearing those Christmas songs all over the place at the moment. And you may have the same resistance that I have to hearing those carols performed in an arrangement by singers for whom those words have no meaning whatsoever. And for me, there's an emptiness to hearing that. And as Charlotte has said, many of you struggle, as I do, with the theology and with the images and language of some of those carols, and we'll have to let that go. But I think in a broader sense, I know, and this is probably true for all of you as well, that there's a disconnect in singing many hymns, familiar and lovely as they are, because if the words stay at a head level, or there's an inner conversation about how I resist this or that, then they have no opportunity to become part of our being, to become an expression of our spirit. And I think those connections and those disconnections are always going to be very personal. They're very individual. They're part of our own unique spiritual paths, not judged or evaluated, but simply part of who we are. And that's who I am.